Hey there, good morning. Good to see you guys back, or good afternoon, as the case may be. Probably is the case, knowing most of you. You're probably sleeping in today, so make sure you're taking care of yourself. Try and get in a regular sleep cycle. It's really hard when you stay up late some days and get up early other days. So it's time for our next lesson. You ready? New unit, first lesson. Lots of stuff in this first lesson to make sure you take really good notes on. So grab your notebook, grab a pencil, and let's do this together. Today we're going to talk about exponents. So let's just do a quick review of what is an exponent. So just a reminder what an exponent is. If I have something like, let's say, 2 to the 4th is how I pronounce it, right? 2 to the 4th. So what that means is that I have this larger number right here, which is called the base. And I have this smaller number that's up in the air, and that's called an exponent. And these are words you've seen before, but just to kind of dust the cobwebs off a little bit to know that's what that means. So if I have 2 to the 4th, what does that really mean? It means I'm going to take that base, I'm going to multiply it times itself, the number of times the exponent says. So I'm going to take the base, I'm going to multiply it times itself, the number of times the exponent says. If you want to write those words out in definition or directions, feel free your notes. You can pause, rewind, whatever you need to do. I think it is like that base is like a stamp, like a rubber stamp. And I'm going to stamp that stamp. I made it like a big number 2 of a stamp, and I'm going to stamp it 4 times. It's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So the exponent is how many times I'm going to stamp that stamp, and I multiply it together. This would be 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So 2 to the 4th will be 16. So just a reminder that that's how exponents work. Now we have 4 skills that we're going to cover in this video. We're going to talk about how to add exponents, how to multiply exponents, how to divide exponents, and then what do we do when we have a power to a power? Okay, so add or subtract, multiply, divide, power to a power. By the end of this video are the 4 things that you should know how to do. Let's start with adding. So we've done this before. If I have something like, let's say, x to the 3rd plus 2x to the 3rd, then this is what we've been doing in our equation work, right? If I have the same thing, if I have x to the 3rd and I have x to the 3rd, I just get more x to the 3rds, right? I had 1 x to the 3rd here and 2 x to the 3rds there, so now I have 3 x to the 3rds. So imagine, if you will, like it's cats. I have 1 cat plus 2 cats, and now I have 3 cats. As long as I have the same thing, as long as they're like things, I can put like things with like things. If I have something like x squared plus 2x to the 3rd, if that's what I have, is x squared and x third the same thing? They're not, right? They're different, so I can't add them together. It's like dogs and cats. I can't put them together and make a whole new animal, right? I have to keep them separate. So the answer to that one, what that's going to be equal to, is x squared plus 2x to the 3rd. It's not going to change. I can't combine it and put them together at all. So that's true whether I'm adding or whether I'm subtracting. So if I have something like 4x to the 7th minus 2x to the 7th, if those are both the same thing, if I have x to the 7th and x to the 7th, then that will be equal to 2x to the 7th. If they're not the same thing, if I have 4x to the 7th minus 2x to the 5th, if they're not the same thing, then they just stay exactly the way that they are. I cannot combine them. And it goes back to our solving for y, where that was why we could not combine. We had to leave it clunky and chunky, is because they were not the same thing. We could not combine them into one thing. So it's adding and subtracting. Skill done. 3 to go. All right. Next is multiplying. So what happens if I have something like multiplying? So if I have like 6 to the 3rd times 6 to the 5th, do they have to be the same thing in multiplication? They don't. They don't have to be the same thing. So the rule of multiplication is when you multiply, you add. When you multiply, you add. That little rhyme in your head today. You know how I love a little rhyme to help me remember things too. So the one for this one is when you multiply, you add. Okay, so you multiply, you add. This is going to become 6 to the 3rd plus 5 is going to equal 6 to the 8th. And the reason why is because 6 to the 3rd means 6 times 6 times 6, right? And we're going to multiply that by 6 times 6 times 6 times 6 times 6. That'd be 6 to the 5th. And if we multiply those together, we're going to end up with 8 sixes. They're going to end up like all together. We're going to get 6 times 6 times 6 times 6. We're going to multiply all of those together to get a really big number, right? So the numbers we're dealing with exponents, we're dealing with really, really big numbers, or we're dealing with like really, really teeny tiny little numbers, kind of expanding our number set that we're working with. Okay, so the rule is when you multiply, you add. When you multiply, you add. So try these ones. Try 2 to the third times 2 to the sixth. Jot these in your notes and give them a try. All right, give those a try and see what you think. All right, pause the video. Make sure you try them. All right, did you try them? All right, so the first one, when you multiply, you add. So I'm multiplying 2 to the third times 2 to the sixth. My answer will be 2 to the ninth, because I'm going to add that 3 plus 6 and get 9 for my new exponent. 3 squared, 3 to the second, we call it 3 squared, right? 3 squared times 3 to the fourth. We're going to multiply that. We get 3 to the 2 plus 4, which is going to be 6. When you multiply, you add. Individually, these rules are not very hard. It's when we mix them all up together, which is where we're headed the next couple lessons, that they get mixed up. So make sure you take really good notes and keep each one of them clear. So we mix them all together, you're going to be able to do it. What about, easy for me to say, right? What about if the base is not a number? What if the base is a variable like x? And I have x to the fourth times x to the fifth. Same thing, right? As long as I have that same base, it's going to be x to the 4 plus 5, which is 9. Right? What about if they're different? What if I get y squared times x cubed? What do I do with that? What'd you guess? All right. Correct answer is x cubed y squared. We just write it like that. Usually it's alphabetically, so x would come before y is kind of the proper algebra format that we're going to write. But we don't add the exponents because the bases are not the same. We only add the exponents if the bases are the same. All right? 2 skills done. 2 to go, right? We're halfway there. The next one is dividing. So dividing would look like this. If I had something like 6 to the third divided by 6 squared. Right? Fractions are division problems, that's what they are. So let's say I'm dividing. And the rule is when you divide, you're going to guess, right? When you multiply, you add. When you divide, you subtract. Exactly. It's the opposite way. So when you multiply, you add. When you divide, you subtract. If we were in class, we would dance. When you multiply, you add. When you divide, you subtract. Say it with me. When you multiply, you add. When you divide, you subtract. Get that sunk in your head. You're gonna need it. You're gonna need it where we're gonna go. Get stuck in your head. Do it 3 times with me. When you multiply, you add. When you divide, you subtract. When you multiply, you add. When you divide, you subtract. Yeah, I'm a dork, but you get used to me. We got this. All right. When you divide, you subtract. All right. So this is going to be exactly what we did before, but it's going to be 6 to the third minus 2, which is going to be 6 to the 1, or we just simply write 6. We don't have to do the exponent of 1. Right? So when you divide, you subtract. So if I had something like 5 to the 7th divided by 5 squared, that would equal 5 to the 7 minus 2. So if you divide, you subtract. That would be 5 to the 5th. And I could, to take it one step farther, I could literally do the 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, and that would be my actual final answer. I can leave it as 5 to the 5th, or I can take it, grab my calculator, and go 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, 5 times, and whatever that number is, that would be my final answer. All right? You give these a try. All right, jot these in your notes. Let's do that one, and then try that one, and then one more. Let's do, all right, give those 3 a try. All right, what'd you get? Make sure you pause the video, try them first. All right, this one becomes 8 to the 1, and I don't have to write the 1, so it's 8 to the 1 because it's 3 minus 2. This one is 7 to the 2, which is 7 squared, right? 7 squared because 5 minus 3 is 2. And then this one is x to the 5th because 9 minus 4 is 5. So when you divide, you subtract, right? All right, 3 skills done. 1 more to go. Add this to your notes. We call it power 2 of power. We call it power 2, power boom, multiply. Power 2, power boom, multiply. What do I mean by power 2 of power? Is things like sometimes we might have like x squared, and we're going to cube that whole thing. X squared, but we're going to cube that whole thing. So really what I'm doing is, what I'm cubing is I'm going to cube the whole bottom thing. So it's going to be this times itself times itself. So that really equals x squared times x squared times x squared, right? Because that's what cubed means. Cubed means I take that base, I take whatever in the parentheses, I take that bottom, and I'm going to stamp it the number of times the exponent says. So I'm going to take that x squared, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. X squared times x squared times x squared. Well, we just learned that if we multiply, we add, right? If we multiply, we add. So this is x to the 2 plus 2 plus 2, right? That becomes 2 plus 2 plus 2, which equals x to the 6th, right? So I could write that all the way out. Let's look at one more example. What if I have y to the 3rd to the 4th? Okay, and I'm just going to put this one down here, x squared to the 3rd, and we said that was x to the 6th, just to hold on to that one. So this one would be y cubed times y cubed times y cubed times y cubed, which becomes y to the, right, 3, 6, 9, 12. 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 is y to the 12, right? So 3 to the 4th is 12. Do you notice a pattern? Do you see a pattern happening? Let me show another one. If I did, let's say, m to the 4th squared, my answer would be m to the 8th. Do you see the pattern? What do you think the rule is? See it? The rule is power 2 of power. If you have that power 2 of power, boom, multiply. You're going to multiply the 2 exponents, and that's going to give you 12. Multiply the 2 exponents, it's going to give you 6. Multiply the 2 exponents, gives you 8. So if you have power 2 of power, just multiply the 2 exponents together, gives you a new exponent. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So yeah, that's the majority of the rules. We have a couple more. We're going to do zeros and negative numbers are coming up in future lessons. And you can do it. You're amazing. You're amazing. And you can do hard things. Know that I am cheering for you and I'm right here for you. So reach out with questions. Meet me online during online help sessions. Ask for what you need. Do the practice and grow your skills. And I will see you again soon.